What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Blothers Podcast. My name is Jacob Shanker.
And I'm Gor Arieli. We're very excited to be bringing this podcast as we will be practically covering every sport there is.
From Yankee Stadium to the Bernabeu, we will be bringing you the most entertaining takeaways from the big news in the sports world.
So let's get started.
Right. So probably one of the biggest things happening in sports right now is obviously the Olympics, the main event every 4 years. And now here we are in Tokyo.
Mhm.
One of the most watched events at the Olympics, basketball, Team
Mhm.
USA. Why don't you tell us what you think your biggest takeaway from the first game as they lost to France in game one?
I mean, I didn't really get to watch the whole game, but the parts that I watched, they were missing something, and I couldn't really put my finger on it. But you can see that maybe the chemistry isn't there, or maybe I don't know, the players are tired or they just don't feel like playing. But there was something missing, and it was noticeable.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's definitely a big thing in terms of what you were saying before, chemistry, right? You're
Mhm.
having a group of guys that most of them never have played together, sometimes have never even talked to one another, and you're putting them on a team and saying, okay, you're going to have to win a bunch of games in a row so you can get the gold medal. That's practically what they're telling them to do. And it's extremely tough, but you are right. They are missing something, and that is a lot of players. It's not one thing, it's a lot of good players.
A lot of players. I mean, the main thing that I noticed today was they just had a lack of big men. Like Gobert was going ham. Like he was having the time of his life, and no one could defend him because they only have three, arguably three, but two big men if you count Draymond as a big man. Like they have JaVale McGee, who I wouldn't want to start or play that much. I mean, I'm sure he's a good player, but he just isn't up to the caliber of what Team USA should be. And they have Bam Adebayo, who is a good player, but I mean, he's kind of small and he can't be the only big man presence.
Yeah, you're right. I do think Bam Adebayo is a great player. I think he was one of the best players in this game. And Draymond Green, he did fine for himself, but that's obviously going to come into a big factor. But I think the biggest one is really KD and Dame. They shot terribly,
Yeah.
terrible from the field, and it showed as they didn't rack up many points. They Team USA barely got many points. I mean, they're the two best players on the team, and they should be the biggest leaders on the team.
I agree. I
And
mean, I think there's a bunch of things that go into making the team, and it's worked in the past, but I think this time is different because they do have Pop. They do have Greg Popovich, who is, in my opinion, the greatest NBA coach of all time. But at the same time, it is his first international tournament as a head coach, and
well,
so
no,
as
this isn't the first time he was playing. He was the coach, and
no, as head coach.
no, didn't he? Wasn't he head coach a few times?
No, I think they had some guy named Mike.
Well, yeah, they had Coach K,
Yeah.
Duke, who. Well, I'm pretty sure I saw something though about Popovich um, being the head coach like for only a few games, but it was really Coach K that was obviously the leading head coach, as he's been one of the biggest coaches in basketball for years and years, won Duke and now Team USA. But I mean, I think Popovich just needs to. I mean, he's getting older. Obviously, I mean, he's what 70 now, something like that.
Yeah.
But I mean, he has to. I think it's the rotations. He needs to be able to get those guys because we know what kind of coach he can be. He
Yeah.
completely transformed that Spurs franchise.
I mean, the thing is, um, Greg Popovich, he has a certain system to in which to succeed, and so on the Spurs, you see that he still is the same coach. About he's maybe gotten older, but he's still the same person.
Mhm.
But at the Spurs, when he's coaching for the Spurs, he can build around maybe have a centerpiece and then build around that. Here, I mean, yeah, he can pick what players he wants, but it's not the same thing because think about it. Most of these players, like the Spurs system, is is very close to these international systems and these European systems that they have, which is pass the ball around, like everybody can handle the ball, everybody can, you know, and then here these guys they're playing on teams in which they star and in which they play amazingly, but here I think what Pop is trying to do is teach them his system in a really, really short amount of time.
Yeah.
So maybe they're not getting the system yet, and maybe it just hasn't clicked yet.
I think that's definitely a factor. And what you were also talking about before about the European play style, it is very different compared to the NBA play style,
It
like
is.
you were saying before. And also the refs. The refs are very, very different compared to the NBA.
Mhm.
The NBA, you get fouled a lot. You're not going to get a lot of fouls in the Europe. I mean, even in the pregame, not the pregames, the
The friendlies.
yeah, the friendlies that happened, like they had what, like 3 games, and I was watching some of the games, and I could see a lot of the NBA players trying to try and get a foul, right? Doing the old Trey Young tactic to try and get a foul, but it was just
Mhm.
not working, and
Yeah.
it was noticeable.
I
And
mean, I think, in my opinion, it's a better way to ref, right? Because you see these players like I know James Harden does it a lot when he goes out to the three and then he pump fakes and then the guy jumps and he bumps into him, but
Mhm.
it's still a foul on the other person. I think that's an annoying way to play, right? And so I think that this European system of refing is a lot better than the NBA system.
Oh, 1,000%. I think that I mean, people will look at the '90s as arguably the greatest era of basketball in the history of basketball, and they're probably right because players weren't getting fouled as much. A lot of players' mentality isn't, all right, I'm going to try to get fouled just so I can rack up points. That's not how it works. I mean, you have people that try to pay a lot of money to go to these games to watch you play. They don't want to watch you jump up
Shoot
and
free
down trying
throws.
to bump into people. I mean, that's not what's happening.
People come for the entertainment and they don't want to see you shooting free throws. Like they want to see you hit that amazing three or break ankles or whatever, like posterize someone. Like I
Exactly.
think it takes away from the fun of watching the game.
Exactly. But I mean, we got to give props to some of the players on Team USA. I mean, obviously, I think Bam Adebayo did well for himself,
Mhm.
but the person that really showed out was Drew Holiday, as coming off the bench and he had 18 points, 7 rebounds. Not too bad for himself, would you say?
I think that's a pretty good game, especially coming off the bench. Um, I'm also personally, I'm surprised that he actually came to Team USA after winning the finals. Like, in my opinion, if I'm him, I'm going out to celebrate, right? I'm starting my off season off with a big ass holiday and enjoying myself and basking in the glory of winning a title,
Well,
which is, by the way, a very impressive title.
yeah, I think that was one of the best finals, but we'll get into that in a bit. But I just wanted to say one thing that I want to know what conversations they had on the plane between Drew Holiday, Chris Middleton, and Devin Booker because they were on that Team USA plane, and I want to know what was going on.
Probably some shady looks and
1,000%, 1,000%. But like we were saying before, the NBA Finals,
Mhm.
I honestly think this has been the best final since 2016. Would you agree with that?
I definitely would, because in the finals, like you see, like last year's finals and during lockdown, during the bubble, where it was a great underdog story for the Heat, which I'm a fan of,
Of course.
but like they were no match for that Lakers team. Like they were so much better than them. And so, yeah, it was the finals and it was interesting, but at the same time, like everybody knew what the outcome would be. And here, like, the Suns coming in as, um, you know, as the probable winners of this finals, but this Bucks team is like they show that they have a lot of heart, in my opinion.
Absolutely. It was, I mean, we both had the Suns winning,
Yeah.
right? I mean, I'm shocked. I mean, I'm a little upset. I love Giannis and I'm happy that he won, but I want Chris Paul to win it.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, you know this. I'm not the biggest fan of Giannis.
I know.
And and uh and so I am actually like I can admit when I'm wrong. Like this guy, he those 6 games, like I have so much appreciation for him. You know, dropping 50 points in game 6. Like this dude can show up when it matters.
He's shown up the entire finals. I mean, he's just dominant. I don't think
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of players, where like good players, where they'll have like maybe 2 or 3 solid, amazing games in the finals, and then the rest they'll be fine. Like, no, Giannis pulled up in every single game in this finals, on top of almost tearing his ACL in the
Yeah.
conference finals, which is extremely impressive that he came back from all that.
I think it's phenomenal and it shows how much this guy loves the game.
Yeah. Thanks for listening. I'm Jacob Shanker.
Now I'm Gorielli. This has been the Blothers Podcast. Hope you enjoyed and tune in for the next episode.